I sent it.
Thank you. Right. Let me check.
I sent it as PDF because it's much smaller. I would much rather share my screen, but I can actually, it doesn't matter. I can work with yours. It's the same.
Okay, let me just talk to the secretariat people in Japanese. プロフェッサーのパワーポイントはPDF で送られてきているので、基本的には彼女に画面に共有してもらおうと思うんですけど、よろしいですかね。
Okay, let's start. Good afternoon, distinguished delegates. I'm Arisa Osawa, the SPP Secretariat, also serves as Director for National Spatial Planning and Coordination in the Merit. Thank you so much for joining the third Spatial Planning Platform online meeting today. It's a pleasure to see you all virtually. Before start meeting, I'd like to give some logistic instructions. If you click Translation tab at the screen, you can use Japanese-English translation. If you have any questions, please use the chat box. To panelists in session 1 and session 2, please keep your microphone muted during presentations. This is the agenda of today's meeting. From now, I'd like to start the opening session of SPP. I would like to welcome two speakers from Government of Japan and UN Habitat for opening video remarks. Firstly, please welcome Mr. Jun Nakahara, Director General, National Spatial Planning and Regional Policy Bureau, MERIT.
ただいまご紹介をいただきました国土交通省国土政策局長の中原でございます。第3回国土地域計画策定推進支援プラットフォーム SPP 会合の開催にあたり日本政府を代表して一言皆様にご挨拶申し上げたいと思います。まずはマイムナー・モハメド・シャリフ国連ハビタット事務局長におかれましては国連ハビタットのリーダーとして世界を牽引していただくとともに我が国と良好な関係を築いていただいております。この場を借りまして改めて御礼申し上げたいと思います。また本日ご参加いただきました各国政府国際機関各国各地域の国連ハビタット事務所日本企業の皆様の本会合へのご参加を心より歓迎し感謝申し上げます。 SPP はハビタット3で採択されたニューアーバンアジェンダで強調されているバランスの取れた国土の発展に貢献するため国土地域計画の策定推進に関して多様な主体間で経験や知見を共有するための国際的なプラットフォームとして2018年に国連ハビタットと共同で設立されました。設立以来、急速な経済成長に伴う無秩序な国土の開発や都市の拡大等の課題に対応するため、参加国、国際機関の連携を深め、計画の策定、推進にかかる経験や知見の共有、主要な計画課題にかかる学び合いを行ってまいりました。昨年2月にアブダビにおいて、第10回世界都市フォーラムに合わせて、第2回会合を開催してから1年、新型コロナウイルスの世界的な流行により、世界はかつてないほど大きな変化を経験いたしましたが、今回は初めてオンラインで開催することができました。さて、現在、多くの国は急速な都市化、人口増加に伴う都市の過密による様々な課題に直面しております。第二次世界大戦以降、都市への人口集中という問題を経験した日本は、国土の均衡ある発展、すなわち包摂的な成長を主題とする国土計画を7度にわたって作成し、目覚ましい経済成長を遂げただけでなく、地域間格差の縮小も同時に達成することができました。成長の恩恵はすべての人々に行き渡らなければ意味がありません。誰一人取り残さない社会の実現を目指し、戦略的な空間計画に基づく国土の均衡ある発展が不可欠であります。 今般の新型コロナウイルス下においても、都市に居住する立場の弱い人々がより大きな影響を受けているところであり、国連ハビタットはじめ、各国の皆様におかれましては、感染拡大防止対策をはじめとする様々な取り組みを実施されていることと存じます。同時にコロナで顕在化した課題も踏まえ、各地で持続可能な国土、地域の在り方について多くの議論がなされているところであります。日本においても新型コロナウイルス化は人々の働き方、住まい方、そして生き方に大きな変化をもたらしているところでありますが、コロナ後の社会を見据えながら、引き続き将来世代も含めて誰もが安全で豊かさを実感できる持続可能な国土づくりを進めてまいりたいと考えております。本日の会議には、各国政府、国連ハビタット事務所、国際機関、民間企業から素晴らしいパネリストの方々をお招きしております。コロナがもたらした影響や国土、地域計画に関する課題は各国、各地域で異なるところではありますが、お互いの知見や経験を共有し、学び合う場は非常に重要だと考えております。いずれのセッションにおいても有意義で活発な議論がなされることを期待しております。さらに今回は初めての試みとして、持続可能で包摂的な成長に寄与する日本の質の高いインフラに関する優れた経験や技術をご紹介する官民ビジネスセッションを設けました。各国政府の皆様におかれましては、ぜひセッション3にご参加いただき、日本企業との個別の対話を通じまして、国土・地域計画に関する課題の解決策を探していただければと思います。引き続き国土計画の策定支援も含む質の高いインフラの取り組みを通じて、皆様との協力関係を深めるとともに、各国の自律的な発展に貢献してまいりたいと考えております。最後に、本会合が実り多いものになることを祈念しております。本日ご出席の皆様方に改めて感謝を申し上げて、私の挨拶とさせていただきます。どうもありがとうございました。
Next, please welcome Ms. Maimuna Mondsharif, the Executive Director of UN Habitat.
Mr. Jun Nakahara, Director General, Japanese Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport. Dr. Pen Sopal, Secretary of State, Cambodian Ministry of Land Management and Construction, Cambodia. Distinguished mayors, participants, colleagues, and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third Spatial Planning Platform annual meeting, organized with the support of the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, Government of Japan. We are most grateful for the continued support of the Government of Japan, as spatial planning is a key ingredient towards sustainable urbanization. It has been slightly more than 2 years since I had the opportunity to be in Fukuoka for the establishment of the Spatial Planning Platform in July 2018. I am pleased with its progress. The Japanese experience of spatial planning at various levels of complementary. The full range of spatial planning is reflected in the Japanese experience at national, regional, and municipal levels. Whilst I was a planner, I had first-hand experience of the capacity building training course organized by the United Nations Center for Regional Development in Nagoya, Japan. The training has proven useful in my career in Malaysia, both as a director of planning as well as a mayor. Rapid economic growth and urbanization that Japan experienced from the 1960s to the 1980s resulted in governmental efforts to find innovative solutions when faced with challenges such as growing inter-regional disparities, especially between metropolitan regions and rural regions. The rapid expansion of urban built-up areas also resulted in the deterioration of the environment. For a nation that has long history and tradition of sustainable living, the political will to deal with air, water, and solid waste pollution is exemplary. Japan also found itself with a shortfall of adequate and affordable housing. What I learned from the Japanese model is that middle-income countries can avoid these challenges if they keep an open mind. The Spatial Planning Platform provides the opportunity to learn from each other, and we can adapt good practices to deal with specific challenges in our own context. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us now share the same challenge of managing the multiple wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are all now confined mostly to our homes. In fact, we are the lucky ones. In quarantine, most of us have been forced to deal with the inequalities in our cities and communities. The pandemic has also exposed and exacerbated pre-existing inequalities and vulnerabilities. For instance, informal workers who depend on daily wages have been deprived of their livelihood, and many of them are women. Children without internet access have lost a year of formal education. It is now widely recognized that COVID-19 is reversing the gain made in poverty eradication and pushing back the target date of the Sustainable Development Goals by a decade. However, there is an opportunity to catch up. But we will need the political will to do the right thing. We must double our efforts to localize the SDGs, focus on how and when, translate policy into practice. The new Urban Agenda 2030 provides the tools that we can use to unlock the transformative roles that sustainable cities and communities can play. While cities are affected by COVID-19 in different ways, they are now actively focused on rebuilding their economies, health, infrastructure, housing, and municipal finances. We cannot hope to rebuild better, greener, and fairer if we return to the old model. We need a new kind of capitalism, and Japan offers one model. Japan's communitarian form of capitalism, one that spreads wealth in a more equitable manner, and one where economic and spatial policy is more integrated, can offer a lot of lessons to other cities. I strongly urge all of us to focus on the digital transformation of societies. We have been working virtually for nearly a year now. Making teleworking and online service delivery is a new normal. People and economic activities are moving away from expensive and crowded city centers. Spatial planning should provide policy insights and blueprints towards more balanced spatial development. UN Habitat has been gathering and analyzing data, evidence, and good practices to develop a new report titled Cities and Pandemics Towards a More Just, Green, and Healthy Future, which will be available in March this year, and discussion papers are already posted on UN Habitat website. I can assure you that UN Habitat will continue to provide normative and practical guidance to member countries and cities in such domains. Finally, let me thank the government of Japan once again for this opportunity to address all of you this morning. I look forward to the action that we all must commit to do after this productive and fruitful discussion. Thank you once again for your continued support to UN Habitat and for a better urban future. Thank you.
this is the end of opening session. Now I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Atsushi Koresawa, UN-Habitat Regional Representative of Asia and the Pacific. Mr. Koresawa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arisa. And hello, everyone. Welcome to session 1, which is about spatial planning and COVID-19 crisis. COVID-19 has affected, as already mentioned by 2 previous speakers, all countries, but its impact must be felt differently from country to country, from city to city. Naturally, the way government has responded to the crisis also differs greatly. The session is aimed to enhance sharing of experiences, good practices, challenges, and new ideas, and so on and so forth. In doing so, we have proposed 4 framing questions, as you can see on the screen now. Next, please. So we have 1-hour session and with 7 panelists, as already also you can see on the screen. My thanks go to all the panelists for accepting our request and preparing for this meeting. We all look forward to your presentation. Before I call on each speaker, next slide, please. I just would like to highlight. Now we are discussing how COVID-19 affects spatial planning and vice versa. When exploring this link, we should also look at, please click. Yeah, click, yes. We should also look at, in addition to COVID-19's impact on different cities and towns, its impact on the SDGs. Click, yes, as our common agenda. Indeed, SDGs can provide good lens through which you can review and reprioritize your actions. Of course, click, please. Yes, new urban agenda can provide good guidance. Without further ado, let's invite our first speaker, Mr. Toshihiro Odagiri from Japanese Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism. As part of the host organization, Odagiri-san's presentation can set the tone for the whole discussion today. He speaks in Japanese. So Odagiri-san, floor is yours. Please go ahead.
日本の国土交通省の小田切です。貴重な機会をありがとうございます。私からは、日本における新型コロナウイルス感染症の感染拡大と、国土及び政策への影響についてお話をしたいと思います。まず、最初の資料ですが、日本の新型コロナウイルス感染症の現状について説明をいたします。昨年の12月頃から日本では第3波と称される感染の拡大期を迎えています。今日現在では11の都道府県で緊急事態宣言が発出され、社会経済活動の自粛やリモートワークが求められています。多くは大都市が所在する地域であり、社会的経済的影響が大きくなっています。資料の2枚目ですが、日本では昨年の4月から5月にかけて1度目の緊急事態宣言が全国を対象に発出されました。当時はまだ新型コロナウイルスの特徴も不明確な中、移動の自粛が国民の間に広く共有され、かつてないほどの交通量の低下が見られました。新幹線や航空機などの広域移動、あるいは都市圏における通勤鉄道においても非常に空席が目立つ状況でした。その後の研究の進展により、特に飲食店などの密閉、密集、密接の3つの密になりがちな場面が危険だということが実証されてきたので、秋にかけて徐々に人の移動自体は回復に向かいました。また、同じ時期の物流について見ますと、外出の自粛が呼びかけられている中で、通信販売の利用が拡大し、その結果、物流量については大幅に増加をしました。緊急事態宣言が解除された後も、新型コロナウイルスの感染拡大前より増加した状態が続いています。商業形態としても、当面の収束の見通しが立たない中で、実店舗での営業から通信販売に軸足を移す動きが見られるようになっています。資料の3枚目ですが、新型コロナウイルス感染症は、今申し上げた交通や物流だけではなく、日本国民のライフスタイルにも変化を与えました。 まず業種により実施率に差異はありますが、多くの業種でテレワークが推奨され、実施をされました。以前からテレワークは国土政策としても都市部への過密の是正ですとか、通勤鉄道の混雑緩和に資するものとして、推奨をしてきましたけれども、一般的なワークスタイルとしてはあまり定着をしていませんでした。図らずも新型コロナウイルス感染症の感染拡大の結果、社会的実装が進み、そのメリットや特徴を多くの国民が理解することとなりました。資料の4枚目ですが、さらに日本国内における人口移動にも影響が出ています。日本の第二次世界大戦以降の国土計画において、東京への一極集中をどのように是正するかということが一貫した主要な課題でした。で、この点について、新型コロナウイルス感染症の影響もあり、図では5ヶ月連続となっていますが、最新の数字では、6ヶ月連続で東京都からの転出超過となっています。先ほどのテレワークの利用拡大は、特に各企業の本社機能が集中する東京圏において、物理的な対面でのコミュニケーションを必ずしも前提しなくてよいワークスタイルの定着につながるのではないかと期待をしています。東京都からの転出先は、現在のところでは、東京の近郊への転出がほとんどとなっています。ただ、都心のオフィスの縮小ですとか、大企業による東京圏から地方部への本社機能の移転、こういった動きも見られ始めています。政府としましても、テレワークで東京の仕事をしながら地方に移住する人に、100万円の補助金を、来年度から行う予定など、そういった、支援メニューも、用意をしております。国土計画の担当として、こうした国民や企業の判断も後押ししながら、これまでなかなか実現ができなかった国土全体への広域的な分散につなげていく貢献にしたいと考えています。でスライドの5枚目、資料の5枚目になりますが、日本の国土計画では、国土の2050年の在り方を検討する国土の長期展望の委員会を2019年から進めてきました。現在では新型コロナウイルスの感染拡大による社会・経済面の影響も踏まえた議論も合わせて行い、今後の日本の空間的なビジョンを描いていく予定としています。委員会では、真の豊かさの実現、リスクに備える国土形成という2つの大きな将来への方向性を示しています。その上で、実現の手法として、社会・経済の各分野で進展しているデジタル化、これを、生活や産業活動が行われて、さまざまな資源が存在する生活圏の単位、具体的に言えば、ある程度の規模の都市から半径1時間ぐらいの、都市圏、これが各地に点在しているわけですけれども、こういったものを、デジタル化していく国土づくりについて、現在議論が行われています。で新型コロナウイルス感染症の拡大という事態を乗り越えまして、リスクに備えつつ、国民生活や産業競争力の向上、あるいは先ほど申し上げた東京一極集中の是正を実現した分散型の国土を形成するというビジョンを具体化をしていきたいというふうに考えております。ご清聴ありがとうございました。Thank you.
Thank you, Odagiri-san, and I think keeping time. Thank you, limiting your presentation to the given time. Thank you very much. Okay, let's invite our next speaker, Ms. Melissa Ditya Sambria. She's Undersecretary of Regional Development, National Economic and Development Authority of the Philippines. Mercy shares with us, in addition, spatial dimensions, macro and economic context as well. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Koresawa-san. Thanks also to the organizers of this third Spatial Planning Platform for again inviting NEDA to discuss the role of spatial planning after the COVID-19 crisis in the Philippines. Can I have the first slide, please? I cannot see my slide. Okay. Okay. The previous one, please. In the next 7 minutes, I hope I will be able to cover 4 topics shown on the slide. Next slide, please. And to put my presentation in perspective, I would like to start by, showing to you the situation of COVID-19, to date. It first came to our attention in December 2019 when we heard news about, COVID-19 pandemic in China. The first confirmed case in the Philippines was reported in January 30, 2020. The figures that you can see now is as of January 2020, but this has already also gone up a little bit, to date. Next slide, please. So the largest metropolitan areas, namely Metro Manila, you can see on the screen, and its adjacent provinces in Central Luzon and the Calabar Zone, Metro Cebu and Metro Davao, which is in the central Philippines and the southern Philippines, experience the largest number of COVID cases. These areas have high population and are centers of commerce and trade. It can also be noted that the number of cases spiked, as you can note on the right side of the right graph, spiked in August as the country's testing capacity was enhanced. Community lockdowns were imposed by the government, by which different LGUs implemented at various degrees, depending on the number of cases, the rate of spread of COVID-19 in the respective areas, and more importantly, the adequacy and preparedness of their health facilities and services. Next slide, please. With the imposition of community quarantines, which restricted economic activities and mobility, the economy contracted from negative 0.7% in the first quarter to negative 16.9% in the second quarter, improved slightly to negative 11.5% in quarter three, and again slight improvement in the fourth quarter at negative 8.3%. For the whole year of 2020, economic growth rate was negative 9.5%, as compared to the stunning 6.6% growth rate in 2019. The closures and reduction in operations of businesses also resulted to loss of jobs and incomes as employees were laid off or working hours are reduced. Unemployment rate surged to 17.7% in April 2020 from 5.3% in January 2020. Unemployment rates have been going down in the later months of 2020 and up to now, when the economy was already starting to open up. Next slide, please. COVID-19 had also negative impacts in the regions, some more severe than the others. Shown on the slide is the impact of the pandemic on business operations, revenue, and employment. This is based on a survey that we did on MSMEs, small businesses across the regions during the height of the pandemic in the country. As the results shows, 63% of the MSMEs experienced disruptions in their operations because of bottlenecks in their supply chain. These bottlenecks include reduced operations by local suppliers, delayed logistics due to checkpoints or border shutdown. Cost of prices of goods and raw materials have become too expensive. Delayed logistics due to limited availability of trucks and drivers. In terms of their income, 43.5% of the MSMEs experienced decline in revenues during the quarantine period. Across regions, 13.03% or 60,299 of the employees who reported in the survey or who participated in the survey were laid off and experienced reduced working hours. Compared with the total employees recorded in the region, Region 1 reported the highest percentage at 73.3%. Next slide. To address and reduce the impact of COVID-19, a whole of government approach was adopted and has been adopted by the Philippine government. It's a three-layered structure of which, as you can see on the slide, at the national level, there is the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases, or we call it in short IATF, led by the DOH, which strategizes and provides the policy guidance in responding to COVID. Also at the national level, the second layer is another body, the National Task Force, that prepares, consolidates plans, particularly to prevent, detect, isolate, treat, and recover for the pandemic. And the third layer, the National Task Force has mirror images in the regions and the LGUs. The third, that implement the plans and interventions and reports back on issues, problems, updates for immediate resolutions of such problems. Next slide, please. To fight COVID, the government pursued a phased and adaptive recovery approach, as you can see on the slide. We went through the emergency state, the beginning of the pandemic, when we identified how best to control this and control the spread of the virus through imposition of lockdowns and preparing the health system. Also identified in this stage are the constituents that need to be provided cash assistance, food supplies, people that lost jobs, the senior citizens and others. The needed budget to do all this was estimated and possible sources identified. The recovery stage, which we went through from June to December 2020, when economy needs to be slowly opened up by strengthening demand of goods and services, getting back people to work to earn incomes, create jobs, to absorb those that were laid off, operation of public transportation. To assist this stage of recovery, additional funds were made available, and at the same time, reforms were pushed to support the production efforts of firms and help them stay liquid and in operation. We are now in the resiliency stage, where we continue to implement the interventions identified in several plans to turn this crisis into opportunity under the new normal. The next slide shows the different plans that were formulated. We have the National Action Plan against COVID-19, and we also developed the Recover as One, where we identified all the interventions that are needed for us to respond strongly and properly to the spread of the pandemic. And of course, the Recharge Plan, which laid down the strategies on how we could recover. And the supreme plan of all is the Philippine Development Plan, which include all the strategies and interventions that we developed in the three plans during the height of the pandemic. So we have the PDP 2017-2022 and the mirror image plans in the regions, the Regional Development Plan, which contains the recovery and rehabilitation plans for each of the regions, and where we revised our goal to achieve a healthy and resilient Philippines. Next slide, please. In both the updated Philippine Development Plan and Regional Development Plans, spatial strategies takes a central role with due consideration of the need for the country to be more livable through community designs that promote open spaces, enable greater mobility and connectivity through provision of more efficient, cleaner, and safer public transportation facilities, adapt to the new normal of doing business through the upgrading and enhancement of digital connectivity, and enhancing resiliency of communities against the impacts of natural hazards, but also of pandemic and even human-induced hazard. Henceforth, fast-tracking the Build program that we have to promote infrastructure equality across regions, the launching of the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program to encourage people to move from congested cities back to their regions, and financial reforms that provide incentives of establishing businesses outside the metropolises and similar other efforts.
Marcy, sorry to interrupt. Can you go to the conclusion? Time is already finished.
Oh,
so.
Which conclusion? Oh, in relation to our pursuit of the PDP and spatial development strategies, we already are strengthening our programs. The Build program, for example, which is to promote infrastructure equality across regions. The launching of the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program to encourage people to move from congested cities to go back to the regions, and several financial reforms that will provide incentives of establishing businesses outside the metropolises and other similar efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so sorry to interrupt. I know you could keep speaking probably another 1 hour or so, but sorry to limit your very valuable presentation only to 7-8 minutes. Sorry for that. Okay, so
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Salamat po. And let's invite the next speaker from another country in Southeast Asia. So I'd like to invite Dr. Pen Sopal, who is the Secretary of State, Ministry of Land Management and Construction of Cambodia. Dr. Sopal covers a broad range of issues and provides us a clear picture of how they are dealing with COVID-19 impact in the country. So Dr. Sopal, please proceed with your presentation. Thank you. And Secretary, please put up his presentation on the screen. Dr. Sopal, are you there? We are not hearing. 聞こえてないですよね。
聞こえてないですね。
Okay, Dr. Sopal, I think we are not hearing your voice.
Dr. Sopal, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Now it's all right. Thank you.
Yes.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry for the electric. Excellency Mr. Juna Kahara, Director General, National Spatial Plan and Regional Policy Bureau, Molit, Japan. Excellency Mrs. Melina Hall-Saris, Under Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Habitat. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I am Sopal, Secretary of State from Ministry of Land Management, Urban Planning and Construction. Today, a representative from Ministry of Land Management, Urban Planning and Construction of the Kingdom of Cambodia. I'm very pleased to attend the third Spatial Planning Platform, which is held today online. I also would like to express my sincere gratitude to the government of Japan and the organizer for organizing the important meeting and allowing me the opportunity to present about Cambodia. Multiple challenges during and in the aftermath of COVID-19 crisis. For today, I will present on the topic of spatial planning after COVID-19. We will focus mainly on what can the spatial planning provide to help respond to and recover from the COVID-19 crisis. However, spatial planning should support intervention of other sectoral policies. From this presentation, you will also learn in brief about the impact of COVID-19 in Cambodia and some key measures in response to COVID-19 as well. Yes, please, slide number 3. The COVID-19 pandemic can affect the global economy, and the growing crisis is hitting developing countries, not only as a health emergency, but also directing socio-economic development. Cambodia is one of ASEAN member states that have been affected by COVID-19. The key sectors like trade, manufacturing, construction, social seem to be the most affected sector. Slide number 7. So far, the response made by the royal government of Cambodia has been high effects with no COVID-19 related death. However, the country is facing economic downturn as mentioned earlier. The 4 sectors, tourism, manufacturing, construction, social, seem to be the most affected. In response to this impact, some key measures have been taken as follows. Enforce standard, slide number 7. Enforce standard of operation.
Dr. Sokar, we cannot hear you very clearly. Maybe better to close to the microphone a little bit.
Microphone? I turn on already.
Now it's all right. Yes.
It's
please.
all right.
Please continue.
Yeah. Enforce the standard of operation and all organizations, school, companies, as set by the Ministry of Public Health under the cooperation from both organizations and quarantine in France to Cambodia, contact tracing effect case, shut down to curb the spread, a series of emergency measures around the most affected business, tax exception for more affected business such as hotel and guest house, measures to relieve the burden on bank, microfinance institutions, and affected borrowers. Slide number 7. And in line with the spatial planning policy, Cambodia Ministry of Land Management, Urban Planning and Construction, under the cooperation with the Japan Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, is developing a Cambodia law on land management, urban planning and construction.
Sorry to interrupt again. Can you speak a bit louder because we cannot hear you very clearly?
Yes. Okay.
Sorry for that.
The Cambodia National Spatial Plan. This law will cover a wide range of topics related to spatial planning, master plan, land use planning, urban detail plan, and so on. Therefore, it is a right hand to spatial policy present preparation following the COVID-19 crisis. In the designing of the spatial planning as well as land use master plan, we determine 2 types of land use zoning categorized: control area and buildable area. Land use provision for both control and buildable area are strictly determined in terms of maximum building cover ratio, floor area ratio, setback, parking space, green power ratio, public infrastructure, construction for public safety and public safety, so on. Slide number 9, 10, and 11. With the new law on land management and urban planning, the key point that need to be taken into account for spatial management and development in following the COVID-19 as below. To promote a multi-polycentric for spreading economic activity away from city center to district density, and to promote a sustainable and smart development, to promote a public health in spatial planning in context of COVID-19 and infectious disease, to promote a natural disaster prevention such as flood and drought, to allocate more green space to help absorb carbon dioxide, rain, water, protection of natural reserve wildlife habitat so that wildlife will not enter village and potentially spread infection. In terms of city planning and design, some detailed points as below are taken into account in correct to build a detached house rather than apartment and condominium. A public restroom and toilet have a washing basin with a salt to clean pan, ensure proper drainage, sanitation in markets, slaughterhouse, water treatment facility, waste collection, recycling, allocate pedestrian and cycling to decrease traffic congestion, manage space in market to direct people and avoid crowding, increase wide between stall and aisles so people can maintain distancing. Allocate a containment area to quarantine a potential affect case in market and mall. Public infrastructure construction for public safety and public space. Working place design to allow for space and avoid breathing. More airflow and sunlight in the building. Less effect for virus or bacteria to attack. Floor area ratio, building tower ratio, setback interval space of building, leasing lot from the legal boundary of the landowner. Parking space for vehicle in land lot. Pre-planting the height of the building limited and public water basin to clean pan, garbage content for disposed mass, and green roof and flow combat climate change and decrease growth in the flow space. Slide number 12. In conclusion, with the Royal Government of Cambodia led by Sendai Kakek Mohasanabai Vichu Hun and our Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Land Management, Urban Planning and Construction, the Excellency Chitapara, through the implementation of the win-win policy and other existing spatial policy and legal framework, a new drafting law on land management and urban planning, as well as National Spatial Plan, I believe the current situation will provide a great momentum for management of urban development, urban conservation, urban construction, inspection of property development, and redesigning space to allow for physically distance in response to COVID-19 pandemic and other affected diseases. The spatial plan will be a very important tool in contributing to preventing infection through contact between virus and people and allow for effective implementation of standard operating procedure, manage liquid and solid waste management to increase sanitation standard and prevent breeding ground for virus and bacteria. Allocate more green space, help mitigate growing in building and including climate change, smart city concept in the spatial planning. Despite all the incredible challenge posed by COVID-19 on Cambodia as well as the whole world, a proper use management and spatial planning that aim for sustainable development and climate resilience remain important. However, what is new about spatial planning in light of high pandemic is how spatial planning can play a role in curbing and preventing the spread of virus. Thus, much work remains to be done, and I am confident that Cambodia as a nation will continue its effort to combat the current pandemic and collaborate with all nations to prevent such disaster from happening again in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I apologize for my rather impolite interruption. That's probably due to not your voice, but probably due to the setting of the equipment. Sorry for that. but I thank you for your very comprehensive, coverage of almost all points which are relevant to today's discussion. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the next speaker. Actually, it's a neighboring country, Thailand, and I'd like to invite Dr. Ratikan Kamat, is urban planner, urban national spatial planner, National and Regional Planning Bureau, Department of Public Works and Town Country Planning, Ministry of Interior of Thailand. She shares the approach, which is very special and also territorial at national level. Khun Nam Chunkrap.
Okay, Excellency, delegate, and dear all, good afternoon from Thailand. I'm Ratikan Kambut from the DPT Thailand, and thanks for Mr. Asushi, UN Habitat, and MD Japan. Today I will start for the topic of COVID-19 and National Spatial Planning in Thailand. I have 5 items in the content to present in our SPP third platform. First, I would like to start for the situation of the COVID-19 in Thailand and following with the impact and system and group that affect with the COVID-19. And I would like to highlight in the National Spatial Policy Plan for Thailand, and I will focus in Urban and Rural Development Policy Plan. And next, I would like to show you more information about the trend for the new normal after the COVID-19 for Thailand. I would like to, and then I will ending with the wellness city for all. Next slide, please. Starting from the second wave in Thailand that we have been for the SPP the second time after Abu Dhabi, Thailand also faced with the infection people for the COVID-19. We also established about the system that we call the Center for the COVID-19 Situation Administration, as we know as the CCSA Thailand. This is the function for the doctor medical that they will report about the information up to date COVID situation in Thailand in daily. And I show you about the information about Thailand that we have the people who infection already is nearly, I update information from this is nearly 20,000 from yesterday, and we have the people pass away nearly 79 people. And also, I would like to mention for the area that we have active checking in the migration area, not so far from Bangkok, that we found out in the Chim market, the seafood market, that we found many cases occur in this area. In Thailand, we show about the mapping that we would like to highlight where it is sensitive and more infection area is quite strongly going in the central CBD near Bangkok, and also some area that is not have much effect or less effect. We also show in the map around Thailand too. Next slide, please. Okay, the impact of the system and group I can divide into 3 main group that we found out about the situation. Have impact about this, about the university. Many university already caught in Thailand, and we change our behavior to teaching via Zoom online. Also, many conference from our department also have to be slowed down and stop for the social distancing. But one phenomenon that occurred during this time, like people in the urban area, we have start like food service. We call like the gap service food for the people who live in the urban area. And also I can show about the transportation changing behavior in Thailand too. After we shut down, lockdown for the country, Thailand also we have the people who would like to come to Thailand, like a foreigner or the local citizen, we need to do like state quarantine about this 14 days. And we need to have the document fit for file about this too. And not many have flight flight during this time. Many flights have been cancelled already, and the changing of the transportation and facility. Also, the people in the inner city mostly didn't use about the public transport so much. Even me, I also changing to use like a private car, and I think it will be the trend for the future too. Next slide, please. And I just summarize around Thailand that we cannot deny that our country is like a tourist destination for the world tourist attraction. And I can say most the collab economic is about the province that we know, the famous city is Phuket and also Pattaya city. The Phuket, I went for the last 2 months, I found out that many shops put a sign in the shop that for rent and for sale. It's quite a city during this time, and also in Pattaya is nearby Bangkok is also one city that's where we are good in the tourism attraction area. Is I went to interview the people, employee who work in there. They only work only for the weekend, not have many tourists, and many hotels are already closed, only open for the weekend. And for another city, still local business still run, such as Chiang Mai and Udon Thani, that some investor or some entrepreneurs still can open because we not rely on so much in the foreigner tourists. Next slide, please. Yeah, for me, I'm sum up that group of the impact of the COVID from my side. I divide to be like T function about the core urban area, urban cluster, and rural area. But I would like to focus more in the urban and rural citizens that they are faced with the situation like this. And the impact mostly involved with the healthcare service system, medical care and service, and also with economic, education, transportation, and facility. But what we would like to focus is in between urban citizen and rural citizen. Next slide, please. For the urban, that the mostly more impact than the rural area, what I can sum up is about the settlement area, housing and air condition, because the people who live in urban area mostly live in the condominium and also high density population. They need to live quite good atmosphere, and they also can have food and service. When the city lockdown, they also lack of the food storage. And this is important to think about this for the city. And also we need to provide more about the green space and recreation area when people can go out and take a sport to make themselves quite strongly during epidemic. And about the urban mobility, I think the system will be changed more individual, and we should design for more environmental friendly, like a bicycle lane and pedestrian zone. This is will be the trend for the future of the urban design and urban planning. And for the rural area, the effect for in our country that I can find out is about we are good, we have volunteer village service about it, but it's not for the long term. And we have to think about this system in the future too. And also about the access to the clean water. I think this is important because in the rural area, not only in Thailand, but many countries, when we are get infection with the some virus, we need to have a good water and clean water that they can watching their staff and also can clean. And this is quite important that we would like to think for consider about our future. And also in the remote area about the technique, and for the study, we need to support about the education in the area, rural area. Next slide, please. And this is our national spatial policy plan. We have did many in the national policy plan in physical side, but during this time, I would like to mention more about like we need to reprioritize about urban and rural development in the future when the COVID-19 starting, and this plan will be more focused in our national spatial planning for the next 10. Next slide, please. And this sum up about the 10 that I think it will be benefit in the future that our 10 in urban area, how the spatial planning in the urban area will be is like first we need to be like prepare the emergency area, like we evacuate area. Seem like another disaster that we need to prepare temporary hospital, or we have to prepare or looking for the temple or the area for industrial. When the people get infection, we also can evacuate them to that area, and this it can be involved with the short-term land use planning. And the second is about supporting about the food security. I think the 10 of the urban agriculture and herb garden, this will be the 10 in the future in the city, because we no need to be transfer when the city locked down, people still have food to consume. And about the creating the housing that healthy for the environment, like we need to design more and be careful more the people, like in the low density, high density, and we need to keep the hygienic housing and also more universal design about this. And important more is about enhance the open space, and this is not only for the during the COVID-19 time, but I think in general Thailand, we also like now in the city we face with the PM 2.5, and green area is can fit for all situation that the people need to do the sport and open space for this. And
sorry to interrupt. Can you wrap up?
About transportation system like this too. Yeah. And for the rural area address, I would like to show like for the clean water hygiene system, about booking infrastructure, will be the 10 for the rural area, and more service about infrastructure. And for this rural area, I would like to highlight about, we would like to preserve more forestation and more coastal area, because during this time, I would like to say that benefit, we are not want to rely on the tourist sector, but we also can come back to be maintain our natural resources ecology system about this. And the fourth, for the rural area, quite important for national spatial planning, we would like to preserve the potential land agriculture for the food security for our whole country. And this is going to be in the land use planning for our system, that where is the important area, good soil, good air, good water, and we need to keep this area for our national in the future. And also promote for the new innovative intelligence about the future of the environmental friendly. Yeah, next slide, please.
Oh.
And it seems sum up, this is almost last slide for me, and this is some I mentioned already, but I would like to provide more information. Is about, we would like to develop the database management system in each province and in each city for us in the future, because when we need to solve the problem, we need to have a good and quality data for our country. And also about urban design, modify for the housing, that we need to adapt for the new generation, that we live with the environmental friendly, and also we need to create new suitable for our country, and also more for the adaptation for the future. About the participation, we will not have like big meeting. We need to create more than new innovative about the participation or public hearing system in the future too. And the last, quite the most important, about the good governance and the public administration. We would like to promote, and we would like to integrate between how public policy and national spatial policy in our country in the future. And this it will be the 10. And next slide, please. Yeah, I think for the new normal, like after the COVID-19, we need the future 10 for the wellness city and our community in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kopun Club.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. I think you have already lots of good ideas and plans for the future spatial planning. The probably challenging is how to put all those ideas in practice, how to implement, or how to materialize all those. But I thank you for your presentation. It's good for all of us. I mean, to know what's going on in your country. Thank you. Okay, so we have covered 3 countries in Southeast Asia, which have some, of course, some similarities and but differences as well. So let's move on to the different region. So we go to the Arab region, and I'd like to invite Professor Mona Fawaz. She's a professor and urban planner, American University of Beirut in Lebanon. And Professor, can you share your screen and start your presentation? Yes, it's there. Thank you.
Thank you for including me in the presentation. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to present my work. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, it's there. Thank you.
Okay,
Please
great.
go ahead. Yeah.
So I want to start by just saying that I'm speaking from Beirut, Lebanon, where unfortunately we don't have many lessons to give. So I will share with you a rapid landscape from what I have been able to observe and document over the last few months, guided by the questions that you have asked us to answer. Your first question was about the main impacts of the COVID-19 crisis in the country, who is affected primarily, and how impacts differ across regions and urban to rural contexts. So as you can see on this slide, these are figures that are shared on daily basis by the Ministry of Public Health. So the ministry tells us that every day how many cases there are accumulated and the context in which you are. If you look closely at this graph, you will notice that early on during the pandemic, Lebanon held its grounds really well. A lockdown was set in place, and the hospitals got ready, and there was a sense of strong celebration by May 2020, in the sense that we were featured as a great success story of keeping the pandemic under control. Now that was very important because Lebanon was going through a very severe financial crisis and political and social upheaval. That made it really important for the government at the time to demonstrate capability. However, under the pressure of the financial crisis, they decided that the economic imperative and the need to bring in capital from Lebanese expatriates should encourage them to open the airport, open restaurants, bars, and facilities. And so as you can see, the curve after that begins to go up really quickly. And by August 2019, and the moment of the Beirut port explosion that everyone has heard about, we are precipitated in a very different situation where the numbers become much higher, and government's lack of legitimacy and its eventual breakdown means that there's very little controls. Consequently, the number of COVID cases rise a lot. The economy is really bad. And by the winter, the government decides to open again further the borders so that it encourages more expats to come. Nightclubs, restaurants, everything is open. And the consequence is that curve that you see here, with mortality rates that were 1 or 2 per week in the summer, hitting last night 81 persons. This is really high in a country like Lebanon. Positivity rates are at 22%, and they've been steady at that very high rate, well above global averages for weeks now. How are these cases distributed? The first thing to notice to the map to the right is that they're everywhere. So they're in Beirut, but about 66% of the Lebanese actually live in 5 cities. And if you look at the map, you can see that those cities are severely hit, but the COVID has spread throughout the country. Now, I want you to take these figures with a grain of salt, because testing is very limited, it's very expensive, and it's at the citizens' charge. And it's happening in a context where people are increasingly impoverished. So we have an inflation in the last year that's estimated by the World Bank to be above 90%. We have an unemployment rate of about 40%, a poverty rate of 55%, no social protection, nothing distributed for people, a full lockdown that very few people can respect outside of the big cities. So that in a way begins to answer the way in which the government has responded to the crisis. trying to impose lockdowns, trying to put in place a scientific committee that can give guidelines for the country, which you can see to the right, but very little reflection on the connection between the social fabric, the challenges faced by people and cities in a context where Beirut is notorious for having less than 1 meter square of open space per capita. So people are confined in very high, overcrowded homes where they're not allowed to leave and where there is no access to public space at all. In fact, public spaces are policed, even the large ones among them, or locked, and you're asked to go home. This is evidenced in the graph that shows who responds to the crisis and how, that you see to the right. There is no public housing agency, no municipalities, no Directorate General of Urbanism among the actors intervening in the policy response. So space is completely absented from the response to the COVID crisis, as is planning and its context. The only policy of social protection that came in was after the Beirut blast exposure, when the parliament passed a moratorium on eviction in the neighborhoods affected by the blast and not the whole country. Housing loans are being informally prevented from eviction, but banks are not seizing only public subsidized loans, and there is no national reflection on the issue. So how does the response really happen spatially? This is work done by the Beirut Urban Lab, which is really important to understand because the government is a very small actor in the response. You have in Lebanon political parties, NGOs, international non-governmental organizations, and they're all intervening. So on this map, what you see are the different non-public actors who are intervening. And for those of us who know the territory of Lebanon, we see a re-enclaving that reflects the divisions at the national scale of the Lebanese civil war that gets reflected again in the territory with more divisions. What I show here as the role of the government in light pink, as you see, is very limited. So conversely, places for confinement, sanitation, distribution of food for people so they can stay at home, organization of the territories, including many political parties and municipalities locking neighborhoods or locking districts and preventing access from it, is very present. There's a lot of distrust in what the government will do. And consequently, because my time is up, I will just stop on this note that spatial planning is highly absented despite the existence of excellent plans that could really make a difference. So the problem is not in the generation or adoption of plan, it's in recognizing their importance, taking them seriously, not as drawings, but actually as serious road paths that can make a difference. I'm sorry I exceeded my time. Thank you again for including me.
Thank you, Professor. And particularly, I like that you stress the importance of non-public actors in your country. And that's also a good lesson you can share with other countries, because government all over the country and all over the world are now facing the public, budget and constraints and probably debts in coming years. So thank you, Professor. And okay, let's move on to the next continent, which is Africa. And I'd like to welcome Karibu Wilson Kayam. He's a physical planner and specialist at Ministry of Lands, Housing, and Urban Development of Ugandan government. Wilson add value to the discussion by sharing unique situation of his country with a focus on the vulnerable communities. So Asante Sana for joining us. Please proceed with your presentation. And the secretary, please share his screen, share the presentation. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning from Uganda. Moderator, permit me to recognize the generosity of government of Japan, represented by Minister of Land, Infrastructure, Transportation, and Tourism, and of course also UN Habitat, for bringing us together in this room of development. And I want to thank you, the organizers, for giving us an opportunity, me in particular, to share about our experiences in Uganda in the context of spatial planning, in the context of COVID-19. So we can move on. Briefly, next slide. Just a quick, please. In terms of urbanization, yes, in terms of urbanization rate, currently, although Uganda is probably one of the least urbanized countries all over the world, but in terms of urbanization rates, our urbanization is one of the highest. The rate is one of the highest all over the world at about 6% per annum. And although our urban population is estimated based on latest statistics at around 24%, and I want to say that in terms of COVID-19, these are the statistics, the latest statistics on COVID-19 in Uganda. You can see that the total cases registered, the latest statistics tell us that it's estimated at 39,261 people, and recovered about 14,000. And then cases of death, we have registered about 318 people, and that is the latest. And of course, the next slide, I will be showing, the districts or the urban centers which have been hit most in terms of COVID-19 infections and also death. We can move to the next slide as I show these disparities among these urban centers in Uganda. Next slide. So in terms of data, Kampala, which is the capital city of Uganda, has been hit the most, and then also the border towns within Uganda. And of course, Uganda is bordering countries which are really being affected. Uganda is bordering countries which are being hit, the most compared to Uganda, like Kenya, Burundi, Rwanda, Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. These are countries with, in terms of statistics, they are registering, more COVID-19 cases compared to Uganda. So because of that, our border towns have been hit very much compared to other places. And of course, if you see in this slide, that region is probably the most, it is actually the poorest region in Uganda, and that is Karamoja region. And it has also been affected very much. And this region alone actually has a population of about 1.2 million people. And out of these 1.2 million people, 61% of population within Karamoja region lives actually lives below the poverty line. And because of that, they have really been hit very much by COVID-19. And of course, the elderly, the older persons, yes, the elderly or the older persons, and then women. From these graphs, you can see that the women have been hit very much, and then also, of course, older persons. But I also want to state that Uganda's population is one of the youngest all over the world, actually the second youngest all over the world, just following Niger at 55% of Uganda's population, is of people below the age of 18 years. So at the age of 30 to 39, 40 to 49 age bracket, that is already, you see that based on our population age groups, you can see that these they are considered like old people based on our population dynamics. We can move to the next slide. Please, can we move? Hello, can we move? Are you hearing me? Oh, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing.
Oh, yes, can we move? We can move to the next slide.
Next slide.
Yes. So, okay. Thank you very much. So we can see in terms of status of spatial planning in Uganda, we can see housing during the strict lockdown, the stay-home measure, especially that government of Uganda imposed. It was not very easy to enforce this particular aspect of COVID-19 enforcement, measures, because of the housing situation that we have in our country in the urban centers. So you can see it is not very easy for somebody to stay home in such a congested, neighborhood. So because of that, people continue, to go on the streets, space that they could find available. It was not easy, so enforcement was not easy. So housing in the urban centers is really one of the, the critical issues that government of Uganda really needs to pay attention to if really COVID-19 and other, pandemics or other issues will be dealt with squarely. And of course, partners, we also call upon, really, we request, partners who are willing, to come and, assist us, address issues of housing in our urban centers, as you can see. And then also in terms of transportation, sometimes, are being used especially in the countryside. So it is not also easy you can see there's no social distancing in some of these, pictures that I've shown. And so these are some of the challenges that we have been experiencing in terms of both spatial planning and, of course, which now also has a bearing on COVID-19. And of course, over 8 million Ugandans, about 19.7%, live below the national poverty line. And we have experienced, increase in total public debt, which has grown from 22.4% in 2010 to a projected 41% of GDP by the end of 2019-2020 financial year. Can we move? Can we move? Can we move to the next slide, please? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, we are hearing. Next slide, yes. Can you wrap up?
Yes,
yes.
Yes, let's move to, yes, I'm now wrapping up. Can we move? Can we move and then I wrap up?
Next one. Yes. Is this one?
So,
okay.
Yes, yes. Cases of domestic violence, has increased, and then the housing situation I've already talked about, and we can move to the next slide. And then the recovery strategies, there are a number of strategies the government of Uganda has been implementing. You can see these are humanitarian kind of assistance that government has been offering. But what I want to say as I conclude is that most of these strategies kind of fall short of spatial planning interventions. Much as we are implementing the Uganda National Urban Policy, the Uganda National Land Policy, and other policies, the advocacy on spatial planning seems to be not very adequate. And still we are implementing activities, as if, there was no COVID-19, especially from the spatial planning point of view. So we really need to, prioritize, some of these activities. And of course, we also still need capacity, building, to help us prioritize, which activities, the impact of COVID-19. So I think this is where I want to end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Wilson, thank you. Asante-sana. I mean, yes, the prioritization or scale up, they are all important. Thank you. Karibu. So let's move on to the last speaker, my colleagues, Vijay Kamaracharya from our Myanmar office. Vijay, sorry to ask, but can you shorten your presentation maybe to half, if it is possible? Sorry to say so. Please go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, thank you, Atsushi-san. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll try to really rattle through this. You would see that Myanmar's cases were only picking up in August. That is attributed to the travel restriction measures. It's at 140,000 cases. 3,000 people passed away, which is a 2.1% mortality. 70% of the cases in Yangon region, of that 77% in Yangon city. And Yangon city has a large number of informal settlement. It's about 500,000 people when we counted in 2016. The other towns and cities followed. Rakhine was the second one because of the international travel there. And Myanmar being largely rural country, low density country, the spread in the rural area was pretty slow. The impact is differentiated mainly to the poor people. Mainly to the poor people who are in 423 different pockets, about 400,000 plus people, highly densely populated, devoid of basic services, no water supply, no drainage. So you cannot talk about social distancing, hand washing, face masking, those things for those population. Therefore, the risk remains there very high. COVID is there to stay in Myanmar in spite of the vaccination that has started, and we know it, people know it. The government and United Nations system worked hand in hand until very recently. You know the political turnover there. So I'll just quickly go through it. We focused on a few measures in the beginning: awareness, providing right information, access to hand washing, access to water supply, access to basic sanitation measures, and providing health facility support. And we have also brought housing agenda into the middle of the conversation. Inequalities in the urban space was never before so exposed, like the ED mentioned earlier. So our focus was on those 5 different actions that I mentioned. And we have also looked into actual impact to the poor people, and impact are threefold, basically: loss in employment, loss in income level, and lending for food security. We have done extensive survey of 1680 households in 7 townships. You can imagine people are earning $76 a month, right? Which was down 1/3 from the previous occasion of our survey. I am really going fast. We have also found out that 90% of the families have lost at least one job, and 69% have also started to feel insecure. And it is more so because that the military has just taken over the country. The eviction danger is there, and the challenge is ahead of us. And 89% of the household are worrying about running out of food. Okay, so these are some data which tells about also indebtedness. In the last 90 days, people have taken loans 2 times, mainly to buy food. So that's the situation of the urban poor. Therefore, I called it differentiated impact on the urban poor. And now, let me go to the next slide quickly. What is the correlation with the spatial planning? In Myanmar, we are in the final stages of the national urban policy development, and there's also a policy component of the balanced spatial development. I must mention here that luckily Myanmar is fairly equitably distributed in terms of the population distribution, with 3 cities of Yangon, Mandalay, and Naypyidaw, major city being at the corridor, the other fringe cities and hierarchy of cities already there. So it's about connectivity and maintaining the distribution in the country. There's urban planning and regional development planning law in place, and national spatial development framework is also in place. So at this moment of COVID, because the issue of housing was brought in, importance of basic services are brought in, we have a lot of chances to incorporate in the new Yangon city development plans to also have space for the urban poor. Let me quickly on to the next slide. We are also knowing that there will be continued COVID crisis for another 1 or 1.5 years to come. in spite of the vaccination. So we are starting our work in 10 townships to cover 25,000 households with component of water supply sanitation, component of solid waste management, awareness campaign, and all those things being funded by government of Japan. We'll be doing 22 standalone community water supply systems, and we'll be doing a lot of work in school in awareness, information, and information now also related to COVID vaccine rollout, right? So that's the overall thing that I can tell in 3.5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vijay. You finished?
Yes.
Thank you. Chase Timbale, thank you so much. And thank you for your cooperation to limit your presentation rather short. I'd like to just announce to all the participants and participants from all the participants, we are going to share all those presentations on the website later after this meeting. So you can check and you can see all the presentation, and you can also ask questions, sending that question to us and Secretariat, so that we can respond to whatever questions you might want to ask. Because we don't have much time now, we have to close this session. We spent a bit slightly more than 1 hour. So let's close the session, and please let's give all the panelists a big hand. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you. Over to you, Arisa-san.
Thank you, Chris-san. Okay, from now on, I would like to start session 2, the role of spatial planning in solving current issues. I'd like to give an overview of this session. In this session, we would like to share the progression of making national and spatial plan and challenges we face. Also, we would like to discuss possible solutions and the role of spatial planning with distinguished 7 panelists from 3 countries, international organizations, JICA, World Bank, as well as private sector. So this, you can see the key questions in the screen. This is a distinguished panelist for this session. Okay, so I'd like to start the session. So first of all, for panelists, because of the time limitation, please kindly limit your presentation within 7 minutes. Okay, I'd like to welcome our first speaker from Laos. Please welcome Mr. Seindra Dwangsei, Director of our Urban Planning Division, Ministry of Public Works and Transport, Laos. Seindra, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arisa. Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So before telling you about spatial challenges, solution, and the roles of planning in overcoming those challenges in Laos, I would like to give you a very brief basic information that may help to better understand the situation in the country. Laos is a country with the total area about 1/3 of France, or slightly larger than the state of Utah of the United States, but with a population of 32 person per square kilometers. Just around 36% of the population live in urban areas, where the largest cities has around 0.9 million residents. In 2015, the national census indicated that 86% of the total population own their houses, while the rest either live in relatives or in rental houses. We are still fortunate that officially there is no report about homeless people in the country. Next slide, please. Okay, can you move to the next slide? Okay, now, hello? Hello?
Yes.
Can you move to the next slide, please?
It is right?
Okay, now about spatial challenges and problems we are facing. The most significant one is rapid urban sprawl that is caused by construction of private houses by rural to urban migrants and other developers without consideration of land use regulation, especially the need for construction permissions. Unsatisfactory land development management and land market control also accelerate the rate of disorder expansion of urban areas, pushing large cities of the country to expose to substandard infrastructure and amenity. Narrow roads and odd shape of road networks, lack of space for drainage and community wastewater treatment facilities, green areas, and improper location of public amenities like schools, markets, and shops are the good example of the problems. The traffic congestion during the rush hour and during various annual gathering events started to be worsening in the capital city since the last few years, obviously has been in a direct connection to the uncontrolled development in the cities. In addition, the disappearance of fish species and aquatic plants from city natural water and significant increase of PM2.5 in terms of duration and levels, despite the lack of specific research to verify the linkages, are apparently due to the environmental deterioration in the city and is a result of malfunction of territorial planning and development. Next slide, please. Having all these challenges and problems in mind, at the end of 2017, the country adopted a revised urban planning law that, among other measures, prescribe two types of city area planning. One is the general plan of city that will give a development direction in terms of land use zoning, road and other infrastructure networks, while the other one, called detailed plan, will be carried out for specific area of a city depending on the development needs and priorities. With a purpose to gradually address urban problems, a more comprehensive urban planning and implementation approach has been targeted by the year 2030, where the area planning and implementation would be included as an integrated part of the city socio-economic development plan, with an assignment of tasks and responsibility to all relevant development sectors, and with the involvement of the community, government, and private sectors in all stages of planning, while using the public-private partnership mechanism to supplement government funding for infrastructure construction. As I mentioned earlier, the existing uncontrolled development lies on individual housing constructions in cities. Therefore, there has been a view that this might be sorted out by the introduction of housing construction scheme in support by urban renovation program to readjust the existing road and other infrastructure networks. Finally, about what do I think about the role of planning in overcoming spatial challenges in my country? Firstly, the action in the process of planning, being it general or detailed, will help us to better understand the nature of the spatial challenges we want to address, and accordingly will help us to set up the development objectives to meet the needs. Then, by applying the methods of economic, social, and environmental assessment, for example, cost-benefit analysis, initial environmental impact assessment, and so on, we might be able to channel our available resources in problem solving in a more rational way. Secondly, a good plan will be able to facilitate smooth coordination between parties involved. In the case of my country, this is especially important for the key players like Land Management Authority and Urban Development Management agencies. Lastly, a good urban plan will also clarify responsibilities for all parties in achievement of development objectives and tasks that are listed as integrated part of the city socio-economic development plan and endorsed either by national or provincial legislative authorities. Thus, the source of funding for the implementation of the plan will be identified in the national annual budget, and the question of law enforcement would have been under the lens of both the public and state control agencies. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sandora, for your clear, crystal clear presentation. Your presentation was very clear for us to understand the spatial challenges in Laos and the current policies and in Laos. And I really agree with your argument, the role of spatial planning, including setting development objectives and allocating clear responsibility and better coordination among different sectors. Thank you so much. And next, please speaker, please welcome Mr. Padoma Ki Maili, Joint Secretary, Urban Development Division, Ministry of Urban Development, Nepal. Mr. Padoma, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak in this third spatial planning platform. So I'll be taking a kind on areas of spatial planning in Nepal and impacts of federalism started since 2015. And the focus will be on institutional interactions, and it can also be called as a conflict, but be a positive way, I can say it's a more like interaction because it just started. So the next slide, please. Nepal is improving in many indicators, yet in lower strata and lower segments, being the 17th poorest country in the world, with less than 1,100 USD per capita, and 48th country in terms of population. But the growth rates were increased in recent years, but abruptly changed with the COVID context, with improvement in life expectancy and other global competitiveness index. Also, we can see the improvement in all kind of software targets, such as the prosperity index and inclusion. In this context, people as empowered but remain unchanged in open economies since more than a decade. Next slide, please. There are some visible transitions which aims to translate this into the development agenda, and also to, of course, for the coordination of many government entities, basically the federal and other subnational levels. Next slide, please. There exists a kind of the National Urban Policy in 2007 and National Urban Development Strategy 2017. I ask for the next slides, please. With nation's economic primate city, the city region and intermediate settlements as recognized as the investment tools. Next slide, please. So regional settings are again challenging, not only with development and infrastructure pressure, but also with our geography and landscapes, because it remains less area in production and for the settlements. So conceptually, we consider our city as a product with an opportunity since 2007. We recognize eight economic region with at least one primate city in a region, but with 7 provinces. Again, demand scale is increased to its economic development for investment in cities are considered as one of the more important for investment requirements on quality enhancement and quality of infrastructure, and in number of cities that are planned to growth, not only with motivation, but also with investment to infrastructure and settlement areas. Next slides, please. Well, let me explain where these institutional interactions exist with federal dynamics. We have a National Planning Commission for overall planning coordination in the country, looking at international commitments and national target settings. The commission is also influence and coordinate sectoral ministries on a role to play in setting up macroeconomic indicators or macro national indicators. So the spatial plan is a business of some kind of sectoral ministry, but also it should hinge to the national plans prepared by the National Planning Commission. The conflict, let's say the dynamics or the interactions would be the proper word to reflect, is doing some of the macro indicator business in provincial level and with the province planning commissions and happening at the local level as well. So non-happening but desirable conditions are spatial detailing of national plans at provincial level and implementation of the regional plan and local plan at the municipality. Implementation of desired investments could also be the business of federal level for its scope beyond one province. And then it's a province if its scope is beyond one municipality, and municipality if in case this is within the municipality again. So this shows a conflict, but a direction is desired co-work and co-production in federal context. Next slide, please. As I explained in my previous slide, that the city is considered as a product, and these are small dots in cities. So these are all initiation and different cities in the countries. There are 5 categories in total. The first one is national game changers. With this, in this category, we have 27 new towns and 5 major urban corridors, of which 2 are already been started, and all the 27 new towns were started already. The second is innovation in planning, for which we have started 13 smart cities, 28 cities with identity concept, and few cities with food green cities, and 1 city, 1 identity concepts. So third is more like strategic intervention in cities through development partners, but we have been investing in to attract the private sector and social infrastructures to really trigger in. The fourth is planning support to municipalities. And the fifth one is a very special one for the Himalayan towns, in which we have towns at Himalayas with some kind of morphological containment studies, and where the population growth is very low. So the next slide is to conclude. We offer a city as a product for investment. Next slide, please. For various sectors, and more like on infrastructure, solid waste, the social infrastructure and economic infrastructure, and even in tourism infrastructure. Constantly trying at federal level and provinces, how we detail out these national plans and to translate into the provinces, and are still a major challenges and initiating changes. We can say it's a positive change, but upscale initiatives are required. So National Strategic Urban Development Plan making is in the next step, and provinces will join the hands to really integrate and coordinate investment in the country, encouraging local governments to better service delivery. Again, the last word, but the word of co-production of desired state, reducing all kind of conflicts. The spatial conflicts, social and political, are the must one. So this is where I have to stop. My next slide, please. With this, I stop here and saying that it would be clarified questions and answer, but receiving suggestions from all of my seniors and colleagues. The last one is, if we have a same agenda, then we can do together and we can succeed together. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Padoma, for your exactly 7 minutes presentation. Thank you for, and your presentation included a lot of information to know spatial transformation after the introduction of federalism and urbanized economy in Nepal. Also, thank you for introducing the concept of primate city across the country, because many countries have a similar-ish strategy for balanced development. So your policy is give us a very insight for all of us. Thank you so much. Next, please welcome Mr. Joachim Langer, the Minister of Land and Environment from Mozambique. Joachim, the floor is yours. Joachim, could you turn on your microphone? Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Good morning. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the government of Japan and the UN Habitat for this opportunity for us to share and learn lessons from other countries on the spatial planning in Mozambique. I will try to be as fast as possible for this presentation. In terms of the introduction, please, the slides. I can't see any slide projected. Okay, a part of Mozambique is a country located in southern Africa and within 1,800,000 kilometers with 27,000 inhabitants, on which more women than men. It is administratively organized in 11 provinces and districts and located in 63 municipalities. In terms of the municipal, in terms of, next slide, please. Territorial planning gives a set.
Sorry, there's seems to be a problem with slides. So sorry.
Yeah. There is a problem. Could you move the slides, please? I was just a bit on the introduction, so we can move up to, after introduction, you can move to the next slide. Is it possible to have a slideshow?
Sorry, Joaquin, can you
Yes,
show your screen? Do you have a slide, a PowerPoint? Is it possible for you to share your slide by yourself?
I hope.
If you can.
Are you seeing now? Are you seeing now? Are you listening to me?
Are you sharing your screen? Could you share your
Yes,
screen? We cannot see your slide.
Okay, let me try my
Sorry.
best.
Sorry for inconvenience.
So yeah, okay. I'm tackling the share screen, but it's not showing anything. But you can't see even the slideshow or even the slide themselves.
Sorry, we cannot see your. It's okay. I think. Yeah, it's okay. It's working.
It's okay now.
It started working. Thank you. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Sorry, so I took some few minutes on that. But okay, I was saying about Mozambique. What is the main structure of the presentation, about the country, and also the importance of the territorial planning for our country. The main importance and the set of principles and directives and rules that aim for the territorial planning, which is guided by the article territorial planning law approved in Mozambique. We've got a set of instruments, territorial planning system, which is led by the national level, the National Territorial Development Plan, which is now on the way to be approval by the Parliament of Mozambique. We hope that in this year it will be approval. And below this national level, the National Territorial Planning, we have got a set of different systems planning, territorial planning. Mozambique is urban, of course, like the other countries. Population, according to the census on 2017, so we've got 28 million, on which 66% lives in rural areas. And about 40% of the habitants, the population growth is about 40%. The main problems is related to our territory's accelerated and disorderly and spontaneous growth in urban centers, weak implementation of spatial planning instruments, weak supervision of oversight of the actions on the ground, slowness in recruiting, or even lack of specialized staff to fulfill the urbanization sectors, and the locations of housing in appropriate areas, implementation of economic enterprises on unplanned areas, which all lead to the environment problems. Lack of areas for the construction of social and economic infrastructures, access roads, gardens, recreational difficulties, also on urban drainage, and the increased rates of marginality, vandalism, misery, and worsening health and hygiene conditions. Those affects obviously the state and the environment for all the habitants. The territorial planning instruments drawn in the last 20 years, we've got all those territorial planning instruments and the situation by now. As I referred in the beginning, the National Territorial Development is waiting for the Parliament approval. And as for this slide, the number of those territorial planning instruments in the country is still weak. And we have to have more actions and trying to improving the establishment and operationalization of those instruments in the country. Challenge, so I'll focus mainly on those challenges for the territorial planning in Mozambique, which is operationalizing the institutional framework for territorial planning, providing the district and municipalities with humans, resource and equipment, and the shortage of money is a really constraint and the main constraint for this development. Mass training and qualification, because lack of technicians trained and well-trained, excuse me, and even community leaders implement the territorial planning instruments and operationals, the detailed plans with low cost and flexible planning models adapted to the economic conditions for our country, giving greater dynamism to the territorial planning. Also, a part of implementing and training people, we think that monitoring and inspection is also crucial, and improve coordination between those sectors implementing the planning instrument, planning, public works, energy, telecommunication, and other institutions which are involved in the organizing and planning the territory in Mozambique is also a crucial issue. Training and capacity building in modern techniques appropriate to the reality on the implementation of the territorial planning, conduct research on the territorial planning, develop requalification of informal settlements, which are mainly problems on the peri-urban areas and urban areas, places where people are building without figure or controlling the planning, territorial planning, establishment of public-private partnership, which will allow profitable housing projects in the municipalities and districts, and an integrated awareness to the communities. In this specific area, we think that involving civil society, NGOs, and others will help a lot on awareness of the communities and the inhabitants in the rural and peri-urban areas. Implementing the executive and operational territorial planning with low-cost and flexible planning models, reinforced monitoring and inspection, better urban land management strategy on production and continuous supply of orderly spaces and safe places, organization of the occupation record and registers, improvement of conditions in informal settlements, guarantee access to infrastructures, land, and also the management of solid waste, sanitation, road systems, housing, green areas will allow, as in the previous presentation on COVID, will allow better environment for the Mozambique. So, since the approval of territorial planning legislation 27 and 28 regulation, the government through the Minister of Land and Environment, with duties to promote and monitor the execution of the territorial management instrument at national, provincial, and district municipalities have been providing the municipalities and districts in the preparation of the spatial planning. So over the past years, 49 urban structures have been prepared, although 15 planned and 9 are ongoing in some municipalities and the districts, which is comparing with the extension and the vastity of the country is lower if we have to consider what we're trying to improve. So the last but not the least main constraint which we are facing in these countries, lack of funds to implement all those challenges we are facing. So for this, I would like to thank for this presentation. Thank you very much. Very well.
Thank you, Joachim. Thank you for your comprehensive presentation about the spatial plan in your country. And your presentation well developed to understand the range of spatial challenges. And also, but I was so surprised there's a lot of progression, including the territorial planning legislation and the 49 urban structure plans. And thank you for your presentation. I'm so sorry for the technical issue. From now, we would like to invite panelists from international agency and organization. Next, please welcome Mr. Nobuyuki Kobe from Japan International and Cooperation Agency. Mr. Kobe, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Osawa-san, and good morning and afternoon, all participants. My name is Nobuyuki Kobe from JICA. Thank you for giving this opportunity for us. Okay. Today, I would like to introduce JICA's approach on spatial planning, especially our project in Bhutan, Mongolia, and Thailand. I would like to introduce. Next, please. Yes. So, next, please. So JICA is the Japan International Cooperation Agency, and we are the executing agency of Official Development Assistant of Government of Japan. And our group is handling the urban development and planning and national and regional development planning. Next, please. And our vision is leading the world with trust. Next, please. Then when we are planning supporting formulation of spatial planning, we support making a master plan. And master plan is essential for balanced development. And this is quite a general issue, but we think this is very important thing. Because the is mainly just from the 3 points. The one is the wide range of analysis, the data collection analysis on challenge and opportunity in broad aspect is necessary, like industry potential, industrial location, access to global market, and social service, road network, national conditions, and disaster risk, climate change issues. And second point is the vision and the strategy setting for consensus on development orientation. And third point is the stakeholder involvement. Through the process of formulating master plan, all stakeholders' voice and voices are consciously collected and incorporated into the plan through the process of a strategic environmental assessment. Next, please. And the recent project, we are more conscious in the SDGs, especially on sustainability, considering the sustainability and the environmental consideration, climate change, and the social inclusion. And one more point is next, please. Quality infrastructure. This was G20 principles for quality infrastructure investment. Was agreed in the G20 summit. And the quality planning is based on the quality infrastructure investment. And those processes are very important for quality growth. And the key words in these principles are the underlined and the bolded, like sustainable growth and development, life cycle cost, environmental consideration, and the resilience against natural disasters, and social considerations and governances. Those are in recent plans. We are pretty conscious and taking into account in the process of the planning. Next, please. And this is a type of the typical type of the corridor development, and those are incorporated in the regional planning or the national land planning. Next, please. This is the case we are working with Bhutan government.
The main issue is the migration from rural area to the urban area. And our proposal was linking the linked urban center in the rural areas. Because in the main issue, the difficulty in sustaining villages and providing all migrants with good job and living conditions. In rural area, towns are very small to provide a good job or good social services. Then in our approach, the regional development will be led by a linked urban center as the combined towns that will be the regional center, and is expected to provide a social service. And in the next step, we supported National Comprehensive Development Plan, and in the next stage, we will support the regional development plan in Sarpangev area, the one regional center of the Bhutan. In Mongolia, we are now conducting support for comprehensive development plan, and this is the same background with the urban concentration to the capital and the disparity between urban and rural area programs. And what we are proposing in the master plan is the IRDP, the Integrated Regional Development Program. Through the survey, the resources were identified in each regions, and those are planned as a regional development flagship project. Next, please. In Thailand, we are supporting a sustainable future city concept. In Thailand, national policy is that the sustainable urban development is set as a goal, but the implementing tools are lack and needed. So in this project, national government is providing a guideline and implementing tool, and the local government is making plan and implementing it. And yes, and next, please. And as a summary, key issues and is the 3 points. This is what we are struggling now. And one is how can we ensure the implementation of the plan? What we are doing is a realistic implementation plan and mechanism to realize vision and strategy is important. And early commencement of the flagship project is also good. And pilot project implementation in the process is important to inspire social awareness. The second is how can we promote regional development? As I explained, the capacity of rural service provider is very important for when considering the regional development. And the DX-ICT potential is, and now we are being studied to complement it. And the third one is how can we incorporate local potential and initiatives, finding a local potential and form a cluster for its value addition, and local initiative by public participation in planning process is a really good example we think for coming planning. Thank you very much. This is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kobe, for your presentation from rich experience of JICA's rich experience in spatial planning issue, spatial planning project. I think there is one quick question from chat box. So can you see the chat box? Sorry. Okay, I cannot see the chat, sorry. Okay, so there is one, so is JICA's approach in spatial planning same as Japan's approach in spatial planning? Mr. Kobe, could you give a quick answer to this question?
When we support, we use the experience of Japanese cases in that same that similar or we can utilize the Japanese experience. Is that, I think, answer for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kobe. And okay, thank you. Next, please, next speaker, please welcome Dr. Gayatri Singh, Senior Urban Development Specialist from World Bank. Dr. Singh, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the organizers and for inviting me to this very esteemed panel. I see some familiar faces. Hello, Tadashi-san. I'm very, very honored to be talking to you today. So please allow me to switch off my camera while I talk in order to preserve the bandwidth so you can hear me clearly. And I was planning to share my own presentation so the time would be more efficiently used. But if you prefer, that would just be better if that's okay. Yes. Thank you very much. Just give me 1 second. I see the clock is already running, so I will try to be very efficient.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You can just add a couple of seconds.
Thank you. We can see your presentation.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So let me begin. Today I will be speaking about how spatial planning can be a powerful tool to increase the efficiency of capital investments, leading to more sustainable cities. So in many countries, particularly in Asia, spatial planning statutory frameworks are actually very strong. They're very strong spatial planning traditions. And spatial plans exist at multiple scales, but these plans are unfortunately not translating into livable urban communities that we would want them to. What are some of the reasons for that? There's several reasons, but two that I would like to highlight are, one, the spatial plans often do not have concrete targets of what will be achieved by when. In that sense, these spatial plans are not strategic. So take the example of a house. When you build a house, you do not simply say, I want an eco-friendly house and then assume that it will magically appear. Rather, to have an eco house, you will get a set of technical experts to specify how many hours of solar power will be needed to sustain the different functions, and the experts will then help plan the number of solar panels, for example, accordingly. Similarly, spatial plans cannot just help cities become resilient if they are not accompanied by specific targets with timeframes of achievement and roadmaps of how it will get achieved. Second, often we see plans that are beautifully integrated, but unfortunately the execution is often very sectoral, fragmented, and uncoordinated. And these two issues lead to cities and neighborhoods that look more like the haphazard or unattractive house on the left, rather than what might be some people's dream house, or at least a well-planned house on the right-hand side. So in the rest of the presentation, please allow me very briefly to share 3 perspectives on how we can change the current situation and create better linkages between spatial plans and capital investments for sustainable cities. So first, I would like to talk about using space as an explicit criteria for infrastructure prioritization through spatially informed capital investment planning. What do I mean by this? So first of all, cities, hopefully all cities should aspire to develop very clear medium-term annual rolling capital investment plans. And you'd be surprised how many cities actually don't have this. But in addition to that, what I'm proposing is that these capital investment plans should be such where explicit reference to spatial plans exists at every level of plan. So if you have city level plans, priority area plans, and then detailed neighborhood level plans, so at each of these levels, there should be a potential scoring. If the investment falls in a priority area of a spatial plan, it should score higher. If it falls outside of it, it should be scored lower. What this will do, and a lot of countries, well, not a lot, but some very interesting examples are here in Turkey and in South Africa. What this will do is it will automatically create a concentration of investments in areas which are designated as high priority development areas for the city. So the only caveat is that as long as the spatial plan is developed with clear strategic targets of economic growth, population increase, etc., with a robust data behind it, this approach will certainly lead to more efficient investments that follow the spatial vision of growth for a city instead of the haphazard growth. So in fact, Government of Indonesia is currently piloting this very innovative approach in 15 cities under the National Urban Development Project, which is also supported by the World Bank. These 15 cities hopefully will have, as we move forward, lists of spatially prioritized investments for a medium-term investment approach. However, while spatially prioritized lists for investments is critical, it is not enough to create spatial transformations in cities. How these lists of priority investments get combined in space also matters. This is one of the reasons why in the last 10 or 15 years, urban regeneration and placemaking approaches are starting to become quite popular. So what do we mean by this kind of urban regeneration approach? So urban regeneration is an integrated area-based approach for urban transformation. So let me highlight two elements of it, and there are several others. Why is this integrated? Because it includes multiple sectoral investments that are coordinated, either taking place at same or similar times, or in pre-agreed phases with a clear set of actors and stakeholders who are engaged in the process. The second is that these are area-based, and area-based because they target places and livability of people in those places and not just sectoral investments. So the transformation then creates a place that is attractive to people, ideas, investments, so that the place becomes more competitive and starts generating greater returns from urbanization. To give you an example from Rotterdam, Netherlands, what you see on the slide here is an open market, which was semi-formal and not very productive, but occupied a large space in the center of the city in a prime area. So the city decided to revitalize it, and they created what you see here, this beautiful structure. A large residential community was created under this urban regeneration project, but inside it, they retained the market that you saw originally and preserved the traditional economic activity of the area. This building and this area is today attracting around 8 million annual visitors per year and generating annual turnover of 63 million euros. And finally, spatial planning of fast-growing cities cannot be thought of in isolation. It is best done in a regional context to increase competitiveness of the cities, and together with that also of the regions. So just to share with you a couple of examples, this approach can be seen in Metro Medellin in Colombia, where in order to prevent uncontrolled urban growth and to accommodate the expansion, there is a strong metropolitan plan identifying corridors of development with clear coordination arrangements and financing arrangements that has helped identify specific investment interventions for different size cities in the corridor. And what is more, the Metro Medellin has gone so far as to actually create focus on one plan that includes spatial, sectoral, and capital investment plans for with indicative financing sources. And a similar approach is being undertaken by cities in South Africa, integrating from national all the way to metropolitan and municipal level of planning. Of course, by no means is this perfect, but it is really interesting to see that increasingly these approaches are developing. So in conclusion, please allow me to say that in order to move forward, we really need to start thinking about these different approaches. And we really need to start thinking about these different approaches in a manner that is collaborative amongst donors, governments, local and national governments, as well as other stakeholders, communities, universities, to create the true kind of urban transformation that will lead to sustainable cities by linking capital investments and spatial planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for your presentation, and thank you for highlighting the importance of capital investment and the area-based approach and the integrated approach in making spatial plans from your diverse experience in many countries. And I think we all have a common problems how to implement spatial plans effectively. So your presentation give a great insight to address this point for all of the participants today. Thank you. Next, please welcome Dr. Tadashi Matsumoto from OECD. He will introduce a National Urban Policy Program, a joint initiative with UN Habitat and Cities Alliance. Dr. Matsumoto, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arisa-san. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you
Yes?
well.
Okay, very good. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be here. So with this presentation, I would like to present the National Urban Policy Program. And this is run by, together with UN Habitat and Cities Alliance, and having Japan as a supporting partner, which we are fully grateful. With this presentation, I focus on 2 points. One, the progress of the global monitoring of national urban policy report, which is one of our flagship work within this platform. And then second, a new work plan of National Urban Policy Program for 21 and 22, which we really like you to join this new endeavor. I would also mention that NUP and SPP, I can call it as a sister program, if you would allow me. And I see the strong complementarities and synergies across the two programs. And then we really like to continue to support the SPP, and then also looking forward to seeing your members also joining and supporting NUPP as well, which I will touch upon at the end. So next slide, please. Just let me start with presenting the global national urban policy monitoring work. So we are seeing that the strong momentum from 2015, particularly looking at different global agendas, Sendai Framework, Paris Agreement, Agenda 2030, and of course the new urban agenda, which was a turning point for national urban policy to gain further attractiveness and attention. At that time was when the National Urban Policy Program and the SPP were launched. So in 2018, within this framework, we produced the first global monitoring report, which covered 150 countries' national urban policy. And we have been continuing our analytical work to support the national urban policy development and implementation, and also various different type of support, knowledge sharing, targeted country support, particularly to Myanmar with the last 2 years, and for many other countries. Next slide is slightly, is just showing the framework of the second version of the global monitoring work, co-led by, again, Habitat, UN Habitat, OECD, and Cities Alliance, and with contributing partners. Today, I don't have a lot of time, so I will just show two key findings. The first one, you see the next slide. This is, well, sorry, one more background document. So, no, go back. Yes, thank you. So this slide is actually showing a difference between the first and the second global monitoring work. And as you see, a box in a red border, these are new questions and elaborated in the second report. So particularly, you can notice that we focus on the link between national urban policy and SDGs. And also we focused also on the role of national urban policy for advancing the climate agenda. And the dot you see in the map is a country who contributed to the country survey. And this is really the end of the process. But if your country have not contributed to the process, and if you still like to share your national urban policy information, this is the moment. So please do contact me and share your information. Please, next slide. So I like to show two key findings. The first one, we are seeing that national urban policy becoming more explicit, more operational, and more comprehensive. So the number is showing that the identified national urban policies in explicit form increased from 51% to 55% globally. We are also seeing national urban policy covering a wider area of themes, and particular focus on a global, climate resilience. The next slide is also showing the link with national urban policy with SDGs, and the report identified the 5 top goals under the SDGs, where national urban policy by the country can contribute the most. We are also seeing, this is coming from other report, but showing the gap between these 5 goals and the levels of achievement of the goals by cities. So for example, only 2% of, in this case, it's an OECD study, so it's OECD cities, but only 2% of the cities have achieved the goal 13, meaning the end value of the 2030 is already achieved. So we have the long way to go, and hopefully national urban policy and spatial planning can support this process. The next slide, I like to present the draft work plan of national urban policy program for the next 2 years. So the idea is that we will renew national urban policy program work plan for every 2 years to address the new needs and the country needs. In these particular 2 years, we of course have a COVID-19 in the context, and the supporting partners are showing their interest to the program to look into more on knowledge creation activity, so like collecting evidence, analyzing countries, and give certain advice to national urban policy of different countries. So we picked up one, of course, on the impact of COVID-19, but also looking at some issues of mid-sized cities, which is also a strong interest coming, and also urban-rural linkages, which would be a focus of our work. And then also we continue the other priorities like global monitoring, as I mentioned, and we try to launch the third edition of the work in the next 2 years, and then also enhancing peer reviews, peer learning, and exchange. So we are very happy to see many of you joining this program as well. And this is the moment, it's a starting of the 2-year plan, so it's really timely. And we are really interested in extending our network to a wider range of countries. So join us. Thank you for the next slide. Just showing my contact and then also a logo of the NUPP, which we really hope that you can also participate. Again, let me close my intervention by thanking the Japan and UN Habitat for this opportunity, and also expressing our continued support to the SPP. Thank you very much.
Thank you for Dr. Matsumoto. Your presentation highlights the crucial role of NUPs to achieve SDGs and ensure recovery strategy after COVID-19. And also thank you for introducing NUPP program. Thank you for all panelists from different regions. Next, I'd like to share the experience of Japan by showing a short video about spatial planning in Japan. Please look at the screen.
In Japan, during the 75 years since the end of World War II, there have been 7 versions of the National Spatial Strategy. The overall goal of the strategy has been to develop land where all citizens can enjoy a rich lifestyle and to form areas of national land based on coexistence with nature while responding to various challenges of the time. Transport networks have been put in place, including expressways and Shinkansen, bullet train lines, and large-scale projects have been implemented to promote balanced development between regions. The rollout of a high-speed transportation system has enabled the construction of nationwide one-day accessible trip zones, allowing round trips between major cities in a single day. These networks are maintained throughout the country, which means that access to metropolitan and major industrial areas has improved. This has led to the establishment of new companies and expanded employment opportunities. In 1962, the Growth Pole Development Strategy was proposed to encourage intensive investment in areas with significant development needs and to promote the growth of industry in outlying regions. The One Village, One Product campaign was implemented in prefectures including Oita to promote regional revitalization by focusing on the unique characteristics of each region and to create branding for agricultural and marine products. As a result of these measures to promote regional industrial development, Japan now has one of the lowest levels of interregional income disparity in the world. The social issues of industrial and urban pollution have become increasingly serious. Since the late 1960s, these problems have been mitigated in part by the implementation of environmental laws and regulations. These processes saw more companies undertake activities to reduce their environmental impact. As a result, they gained skills to create quality infrastructure. Meanwhile, as overconcentration of the population in Tokyo continues, the problem of overcrowding has become more serious. Growing demand for housing has seen new residential areas formed along train lines. In central Tokyo, subways have replaced most trams, contributing to the formation of a train-centric megacity with a low dependency on automobiles. In the 2010s, Japan's falling birth rate and growing population of older people, along with a drop in the population overall, became a more serious problem. There has been a substantial increase in depopulated areas. The 7th National Spatial Strategy was created in 2015. Its main areas of focus are addressing the challenge of population decline, an emphasis on regional uniqueness, and striving for economic growth through innovation. The basic objectives of the strategy are promoting interaction-oriented revitalization of national territory and developing a compact and networked structure. The long-term vision for national spatial development looks further ahead to 2050. Its main goal is to develop national land so citizens can enjoy true richness, based on a renewed awareness of the value of life that we have gained from experiencing frequent large-scale disasters and the spread of COVID-19.
Thank you. I hope you understand that formulation and implementation of spatial plan enable Japan to achieve economic development. So in this session, we have learned a lot of important lessons from national governments and international organizations. So I'd like to expand our discussion by inviting private sector. Next final speaker, I'd like to welcome Mr. Fukazawa from Nishi Nippon Railway Company Limited. He will talk about the role of private company in spatial planning. I'm so sorry to keep you and waited so long. Mr. Fukazawa, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Arisa-san. And I'm really happy to be a part of this important session. Let's just straight go into my presentation. Here you are, and here the slideshow. I'm going to talk about the unique role of some private railroad companies in Japan in the context of spatial planning at the regional level. I refer to the company where I work as an example, which I believe by and large represents other companies as well. In fact, I joined this company only in 2017, and prior to that, I was an official of the Japan's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and the regional director of UN Habitat for Asia and the Pacific in the last 5 years. My professional background is indeed spatial territorial planning. And it is through this lens, this kind of lens, that I make the following presentation. I hope it will be useful. The name of my company is Nishi Nippon Railroad, in the NNR in short. The NNR operates mainly in the Fukuoka prefecture, located in the west end of Japanese archipelago, and the population of the prefecture is 5.1 million, which is a kind of catchment area of this company. And it's a beautiful city, Fukuoka, and it is the compact cities are networked by the efficient transport network. Part of that, my company also operates. And the portfolio of this company and the many things that we do. And now, NNR was founded in 1908, which is a century old. And as a small local railroad company. And today, we run one of the most important urban commuter train networks in Fukuoka and operates 3,000 buses and transporting 1 million passengers altogether. And we are engaged in real estate business, not only railroad, but also we are engaged in real estate business like housing, hotels, offices, and commercial developments, and even amusement facility. And the key thing is that it is a synergy between the public transport network that we run and the many housing and other urban development projects alongside of the transport network that we run. And the motto of NNR is to contribute to Fukuoka's growth. And this is certainly not a superficial sugarcoating word, but the real one, because this is indeed the way in which NNR makes profit. And we think about the long-term prosperity of the Fukuoka area, which we believe will eventually come back and benefit NNR in the longer run. And that was the DNA of this company, and I call this type of mindset, this type of business model is a Japan type TOD, transport-oriented development. And similarly, with support of the Fukuoka City Authority, NNR takes the leadership in a very important urban regeneration project. Over 270 stakeholders participate, and they are the owners or renters of the properties within this project area, and many of them normally compete in their daily business. However, as far as this project is concerned, all the stakeholders agree and share the common goal in terms of the direction of the regeneration of this site, of this project area. And NNR is proud to function as the primary facilitator in this very complex, time-consuming process of consensus building and coordination, and thus contribute to further prosperity of Fukuoka as a whole. That's other things that we do in Fukuoka, and we also work in overseas, selling condominiums in Vietnam, etc. And we do technical cooperation in Hanoi. I skip it. And this is a history of Japan's TOD in a more general term. And another history. And now, turning our eyes to housing development, let me highlight that Japan type TOD was quite useful, effective, particularly during 1960s and 70s, when huge demand for affordable housing was highly imminent against a background of very rapid and massive urbanization and high income growth and constant increase of household income. To address this challenge and opportunity, under the leadership of the central government, many what is called new towns were constructed in the outskirts of the city centers. And this is where the private railroad companies in Japan played important roles through strengthening or expanding the existing railroad in parallel with the many mass housing developments, which was done by Japan Housing Corporation at that time. And the government devised necessary PPP, public-private partnership facilities, including some land use, land value capturing mechanism, which is quite important, and which facilitate the cost recovery of the massive and long-term investment to the transport infrastructure. The TOD in urban renovation, I skip it, and some new idea which is called area management along the train line, things like that. I skip it, and that is what we do with the concept of train line area management. And conclusion. Firstly, I have highlighted the unique nature of Japan type TOD, whereby the synergy is leveraged between the public transport network and urban development projects, initiatives alongside of the network. And secondly, in the context of the current pressing demand for affordable housing in some middle-income countries, in Asian countries and African countries, this kind of Japan type TOD may be useful in addressing such challenges and opportunities. I wish to invite governments to consider fostering or promoting some kind of appropriate business environment in which private sector can also work hand in hand effectively with the private sector, with the public sector. And of course, the things are different from the time of Japan of 60s and 70s. Also, necessary adjustments have to be done. Finally, I have to say that much of my presentation today owes much to this book written by Mr. Yajima and Professor Ieda, which discusses very well in detail the history of Japan type TOD and various case studies. English version is available. This concludes my presentation, and I can continue, and also I can expand my discussion in the next business session as well. So those of you who wish to hear more about that, you are highly welcome. I thank you for your kind attention. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fukazawa, for introducing the role of private sectors in spatial planning and the Japanese TOD. Your presentation gave crucial insights about the cooperation between public and private sector in spatial planning. Okay, so this is the end of session 2. Thank you again for making fascinating presentation for all speakers. I'm so sorry that I cannot allocate enough time for all of you, but thank you for your presentation. Let me give a brief information of session 3 after break. In session 3, participants have a chance to join individual consultation with Japanese infrastructure companies, JICA, and World Bank. In Zoom breakout room, they will provide the knowledge and technology that can help your countries and cities to address a range of spatial challenges. We are looking forward to seeing you again in session 3. Okay, now I would like to switch to the closing session. I welcome two reporters from New and Habitat to review and highlight important points for today's discussion. Please welcome Ms. Lilida Ogden and Ms. Marion Reynosa. Lilida and Marion, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arisa. Can you hear me?
I can hear, but your voice is so. Could you turn on? Please speak louder, please.
Is it better now?
Yes, better. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Arisa, for introducing us. We shared the PowerPoint. Can you set it up, please? Yeah, you can go to next slide, please. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank
Lydia, can you speak a bit louder and put Marion, sorry, a bit louder and put your mic closer. Yes, it's much better. Thank you.
Is it better now?
It is better, but speak a bit louder. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Atsushi. So first of all, let me thank once again all our esteemed panelists for sharing their experience. It was very interesting to listen to all of you. So regarding the first session on the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis, it was undeniable that the current pandemic has greatly affected the most vulnerable and created disruption in all sectors. However, impacts have differed from urban centers to rural areas, impacting cities more widely and leading to urban-rural migration. As a result, most countries are now moving from a state of emergency to a state of recovery through national strategic plans to recover socially and economically. We can see a strong aspiration for a paradigm change from most of the countries who have presented here today. This crisis offers the opportunity to develop more sustainable ways to ensure a green and durable recovery. Also, it was very interesting to learn that locally, in response to the crisis, more diverse actors have taken actions in contributing to cities' recovery. Next slide, please. Thank you. Also, as highlighted by our panelists, spatial policy and planning are crucial to recovering from the pandemic, and changes need to be made to ensure sustainable development. It was very interesting to identify the scale of action with the simultaneous development of national and regional strategies. In that sense, most of our speakers noted the necessity to mainstream disaster prevention and mitigation plans at all levels to advance adaptation, promote healthier environments, and accelerate connectivity. Finally, it is clear that spatial planning can play a crucial role to build resilience and tackle urban challenges. Decentralization and advancing the rural-urban continuum through integrated governance and efficient and green infrastructures are essential to ensure sustainable development. Another key role of spatial planning will be to accelerate improved access to basic services, especially water, and the development of affordable housing and informal settlements upgrading initiative. Finally, the speakers also highlighted the need for green cities, promoting economic diversity and integrating new work styles and digitalization, developing sustainable urban mobilities, and advancing urban food security. It is clear from today's discussion that the COVID-19 crisis has made the role of planning in achieving sustainable development goals clearer than ever before. I thank you all for your attention, and I will hand over to Lydia for session 2 conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you again to all the esteemed panelists from who we have learnt vital lessons today. In the second session, we focused on the key spatial and regional challenges we face and the potential solutions to these issues. We have heard from panelists from a range of contexts who have been working to develop localized solutions to these challenges. However, there are a number of unifying challenges evident across the region and globe. Firstly, a number of speakers have discussed the challenges associated with rapid urbanization. There are a number of environmental issues associated with urban sprawl, such as an increased city-level environmental footprint. We know that well-planned and well-managed cities have the potential to host effective mitigative climate change measures, but urban sprawl greatly reduces a city's ability to do this. Instead, unrestricted low-density development characterized by spontaneous land development and traffic congestion presents a number of serious environmental and socio-economic concerns. Secondly, an issue that was discussed by a number of panelists was the challenge of changing contexts. We have been presented with evidence of cities shifting economic bases and demographic changes. As in the case of Nepal, where high levels of rural-urban migration are occurring as people enter the workforce seeking, high numbers of people are entering the workforce seeking employment opportunities in urban areas. This presents a number of development challenges. The challenge to match levels of available quality infrastructure and amenities with an expanding urban population is significant across the Asia-Pacific region as well as the rest of the globe. The resulting spontaneous housing construction and rapid development of informal settlements poses a number of socio-economic concerns for those living in urban poverty. In terms of solutions, panelists have been unified in recommending a holistic approach which integrates socio-economic and environmental development goals. In cities where rapid urban expansion is characterized by informal settlement sprawl, it is vital to prioritize action in these areas where there is limited access to basic services so as to protect the most vulnerable. These solutions must be multifaceted in order to address the multitude of challenges cities face. For example, there are planning solutions to both climate change and urban poverty in the form of resilience building measures by developing vital infrastructure. Options for medium density development based on adequate housing for all and reduced reliance on personal vehicles through walkable neighborhood models were well illustrated by the example from Japan of the railway neighborhood-oriented development model, promoting effective urban-rural linkages. In addition to these challenges, one issue that has been raised in one way or another by all panelists is the lack of cooperation and coordination between agencies, departments, regions, and public and private sectors. Panelists have stressed the challenge this presents in terms of implementation. Creating synergies and promoting linked up thinking between agents is vital for tackling the challenges that we face. Maximizing opportunities for knowledge and resource sharing and setting realistic goals for master planning that works with the capacity of the smallest service providers gives urban practitioners and governments achievable goals to work towards. Finally, the importance of stakeholder consultation was stressed by speakers. Bringing a greater diversity of voices into the urban planning conversation will produce localized solutions based on the experience of those who know their environments best. By developing inclusive urban processes, we support a holistic approach to urban change that integrates the aspirations of all for a sustainable and just urban future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia and Marion, for your clear summary to the discussion. I really appreciate your effort to make a great summary in a short time. Okay, next, please welcome our final speaker, Mr. Yasuo Tanabe, Deputy Director General, National Spatial Planning and Regional Policy Bureau from MURIT. He will make a closing remarks in Japanese. So, Mr. Tanabe, the floor is yours.
国土交通省国土政策局審議会の田辺と申します。本日はお忙しい中、第3回国土地域計画策定推進支援プラットフォーム SPP 会合に参加いただきましてありがとうございました。今回の SPP 会合は新型コロナウイルスの世界的な流行に鑑み、初のオンライン開催となりましたが、その強みを生かし、アジア、 中東、アフリカ、ヨーロッパなど、世界各国から150名を超える方にご参加いただき、活発な議論がなされたと考えております。素晴らしいプレゼンテーションをいただきましたすべてのパネリストの皆様に感謝いたします。先ほど報告者のオグデンさんとレイノサさんに議論をまとめていただきましたが、今回の SPP 会合では、新型コロナウイルスによる影響を踏まえた新たな社会における国土計画の役割、また各国、各地域における国土地域計画の策定状況や抱えている課題、解決策について情報提供、共有がありました。コロナがもたらした影響や国土地域計画に関する課題は国によって異なるものの、お互いの経験を共有することで学び合い、SPP のネットワークが新たな計画の立案やさまざまな課題の解決に向けた方策を考える際にあたっての一助となればと思います。この後、10分間の休憩を挟み、次のセッションでは SPP 初めての試みとして、優れた技術を有する多くの日本企業と、先ほど発表いただきました JICA と世界銀行が皆様をお迎えし、プロジェクトの紹介や個別の相談に乗る時間を設けたいと思います。ぜひセッション3の会場となる Zoom ミーティングに移行し、興味のある企業のブレイクアウトルームを訪問して、国土地域計画分野における課題の解決策を模索していただければと思います。次回の SPP 会合は来年開催予定です。皆様にまたお会いできることを楽しみにしています。本日はどうもありがとうございました。
Thank you, Mr. Tanabe. This is the end of closing session. We will have a 10 minutes break. Session 3 will start from, because of time, session will start from 6:10 p.m. in Japan time. Session 3 will be held in different meeting room. If you want to join session 3, please access the link in the chat box. Thank you.
テスト、テスト。よろしいですか。よろしいですか。大変お待たせいたしました。ただいまより第3回国土地域計画策定推進支援プラットフォーム会合のセッション3を開始いたします。まず、スムーズな進行のために、皆様の Zoom の表示名を最初に国名または所属機関名、それに名前としていただくようお願いいたします。それでは、今回のビジネスセッションにご協力いただきました国土交通省総合政策局グローバル戦略後藤国際建設産業戦略官よりご挨拶をいただきたいと思います。後藤様、よろしくお願いいたします。後藤さん、声が入って、声が聞こえてません。聞こえます。聞こえます。すみません。はい、聞こえます。OK。 後藤様、ありがとうございました。続きまして、本セッションの簡単な説明に入ります。今回は Zoom のブレーカー機能を使います。現在、皆様はメインルームにいます。各ブレークアウトルームに入室ためには、入室ボタンを押して、各自ご関心のあるブレークアウトルームへ入室する必要があります。各ブレークアウトルームには18社の日本企業のほか、JICA、世界銀行のスタッフが皆さんをお待ちしております。どのルームへも入退出自由ですので、皆様関心のある企業に訪問して、質の高いインフラ技術の体験や、その他実現に向けた相談等をしてください。また、今回試行的に国土政策コンサルティングルームを設けました。国土政策に関してご関心のある方や、セッション1、2を踏まえたディスカッションを希望する方は、こちらへお越しください。本セッションは、ただいまから1時間後、19時15分で終了となります。時間の許す限り、多くのルームをお回りください。再度、こちらのメインルームへ集合していただく必要はございません。では、ビジネスセッションを開始いたしましょう。リーさんお待ちしてます。90番。
Welcome to consultation room. Welcome to Spatial Planning consultation room. We are waiting for the participants. Hello, Alex. Can you hear me? Thanks. Okay, hello. Welcome to your room. Actually, good evening in Japan.
斉藤さん、こんにちは。斉藤さん、こんにちは。ご質問ありますか？もしもし。お客さん来た。ちょっと待ってくださいね。出てちゃった。聞こえます。今始めました。18時15分から19時15分までになりました。遅れまして申し訳ありません。